Hey, what's up? Serpentine here, checking out the first-person sci-fi shooter E.T Armies, developed by Raspina Studios, an Iranian development team, this being their first title. E.T Armies has you playing as a soldier in the Parsis army, working together with a small squad, attempting to infiltrate and destroy a forsaken base of operations. Being a shooter, the gunplay is the meat of the game, and while it isn't anything to marvel at, it's still pretty decent and rewards accuracy over just spraying enemies in the hope they'll eventually die. Hip firing is surprisingly accurate, being able to headshot enemies 50 meters or so away with a pretty good hit chance while burst firing. Scoping in though is still the preferred method, especially in the later stages of the game, where large groups of enemies need to be taken down quickly, with headshots killing them instantly. Some of the enemies are also heavily armoured in the later stages, making headshots almost essential, as even the sniper rifle will need to hit 2 body shots to take them down. Most of the sights in the game are red dot sights, at least for the assault rifles and shotguns, with the sniper obviously having a much larger scope attached to it. Unfortunately for those that prefer the click and hold method for scoping in with guns, E.T Armies only offers a toggle, which can be annoying when you're used to the other method. Most shooters should really have an option for that these days. It also doesn't offer any kind of field of view option or slider, although for me the FOV wasn't too bad, but it was narrower than I'm used to and like to play first person games at. The movement in the game could have been freer flowing. By that I mean the small platform elevations should have been jumpable, feeling quite odd when you're used to being able to jump over or on top of environmental objects in most other games. It was to the point of wondering why there was even a jump button in the game, but some exceptions did pop up. The various map layouts could have also been less straightforward, with more paths to take, rather than feeling like you're just going down one long corridor at times. When the levels do open up, the game does feel a lot better, being able to flank enemies rather than just meeting them head on over and over. In combat, you're heavily encouraged to utilize cover. Even peeking over the top of it, you can quickly lead to death, so you have to take combat slowly as you pick off enemies one by one, rather than just running into the middle of the pack Rambo style. You do have regenerating health though, so if you do take a couple of hits, you'll be able to hide and wait till you're able to attack again. Later on in the game though, these opportunities become rarer and rarer, as the drones in the game will chase you down. Most of the enemies you'll face are humans, varying from your usual grunts with assault rifles to charging shotgun wielders, armoured specialists, and finally snipers that will appear at the highest reaches of the map, revealing themselves via their red lasers as they take aim. Sometimes they will be accompanied by mechanical droids, or perhaps just the droids alone, that come in a couple of varieties too. There are the wall-mounted turrets that will tear through you if you stand out in the open. Then there are the 2 flying variants, although I couldn't really tell if one was actually any different except aesthetically. But these are the guys that will chase you down, forcing you to destroy them or quickly move to new cover. Lastly, there are the large carriers that wield heavy machine guns and missiles, and these require you to use anti-air missiles to take them down. For your part though, it's simply using a device to lock onto the vehicle. There are also tanks in the game, but they are only ever seen in cutscenes, teasing you with the possibilities of them appearing later on in combat. Overall, the gameplay is pretty simplistic but still entertaining. There are definitely features that could have been added to make it a more epic experience though, like having a pilotable vehicle or having to face off against a tank blocking your way. Luckily the game is short enough, only being a 2-hour experience, for the gameplay that is available to not get stale, and the game does ramp up in intensity in the later stages, fitting well within that time frame.
That is the energy source?
Yeah, the last one.
So where are the other stabilizers?
The graphics in the game, as you've probably already noticed, focus on bright lights, lens flares, and reflective surfaces. Just to see how much these elements are a part of the game's graphical style, here is a comparison with the lens flare and bloom enabled, and then the lens flare and bloom disabled. While I'm not against the use of these features, I do think they are a little overused in this situation and could have been toned down just a bit so they weren't so blinding to the player in some situations. The environments in the game don't really have much in them either, which makes it immediately apparent when you're about to go into combat, as you start seeing multiple barrels and crates filling up the space that'll act as your cover in the fight. The texture work though, and even some of the main props in the game, like the carriers and the character's armor, look really good, but there's just too little of it, making the game feel quite empty and repetitive.
All these years I've come here for you. You asked me to come to deal with them. I'm here now, and you don't want me to lead the operation?
We really needed your expertise. You know them really well.
The sound in E.T Armies varies depending on where you're at in the game. At some points all the sounds are great and they all work really well together. Other times it sounds like everything has been compressed to save space or something, and is incredibly jarring as it bounces between the two different sounds throughout the game, sounding like some characters are wearing helmets or something.
Yeah, way too good.
Nothing happened yet. It's just the beginning.
Boss, you hear me?
The actual voice acting has its ups and downs too, with some good line deliveries here and there, but others that just sound really forced and not fitting in all that well. The sound effects for all the various guns in the game are actually pretty good and provide some really hectic combat scenes with the sound of gunfire completely surrounding you. As for the game's soundtrack, it consists of epic orchestral pieces that kick in once the fighting starts, and does suit the game fairly well, ramping up with intensity in all the right places.
United world under a single flag. They were the dreams that have never come true.
The story in E.T Armies seems to have started with some grand idea for why there are these two human forces fighting, but quickly fizzles out. You're given a quick rundown of the events leading to the current situation in the world, but it gives no importance or meaning to what you'll actually be doing in the game. You'll be infiltrating one of the Forsaken bases, but it's not clear exactly what you'll be doing once you've infiltrated. Even at the end of the game, I still had no clue what I had just done or what the repercussions would be. For most of the game, it just says these are your enemies, and that waypoint over there is where you need to go. Even without much of the information though, the world is still pretty interesting with its futuristic setting and beginning of a storyline. What there was of a storyline actually reminded me a little bit of the original Killzone, which had me excited for what the game could have potentially been. Other features of the game include a multiplayer mode for up to 16 players. Due to this being a review copy though, I didn't get a chance to experience it. Apart from that though, there are also 3 difficulty levels for the game to be played at: easy, normal and hard. I highly suggest playing the game on the normal difficulty to provide yourself with an actual challenge. The hard mode won't be available to play until you complete at least one run through of the game.
Move the wagon! Right now!
Wow.
Altogether, E.T Armies receives an average rating. It has the base workings of a competent first-person shooter and even the beginnings of an extremely interesting world, but it just fails to expand upon it. The level design is all basically long corridors, the graphics could have used a toning down in the bloom and lens flare effects, the sound randomly pulls you in and out of the game as it jumps between compressed and uncompressed sounding files, and the story is just missing. However, in saying all of that, the actual gameplay of the game was enjoyable. Not outstanding, but enough to keep things entertaining. If you're after a quick first-person shooter campaign that provides a decent challenge but not much else, then E.T Armies is worth a look. However, if you're expecting a story-rich, epic shooter, then this isn't it. Anyway, that's my review for E.T Armies, the game officially released on Steam on the 3rd of March for $14.99 or your regional equivalent. If you want to find out more about the game, check out the links below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.